Hey guys, welcome to the Liberal Hive Mind, bringing the worst of news to Democrats on a daily basis. Well friends, I titled yesterday's video, "It's Officially Happening," followed by a bunch of exclamation marks, and of course that meant a couple different things. It meant that Trump was officially running for president, at this point no longer vying for the nomination, but as the Republican nominee. Maybe not officially, but it's all but certain at this point. But I was also talking about the sort of shift in messaging, this new comeback Trump hitting the stage, and the general point of the video, or the point that I was making, was that it seemed to me that we were seeing a new Trump that we hadn't seen before, possibly a more controlled and poised, less bombastic Trump that could be an absolute force to be reckoned with in the political arena. I made that prediction, and of course I referenced the same point that I always make, how the media is going on and on, constantly fear-mongering about Donald Trump as the most dangerous thing ever. Then of course there's Trump, that juxtaposition. Well, I guess that is officially happening. It really is 2016 all over again. And don't take it from me, because I'm not the only one saying it. It seems as though at this point, even the CEO of JP Morgan is sort of in a similar mindset. What he said on CNBC here was not only perfect and accurate and right on point, but he probably also had NBC executives in a complete chaotic panic behind the scenes. Let me show you guys exactly what I mean by that. We got some stuff to get into, so let's roll the tape. Alright friends, so I can't believe I'm saying this. This happened at Davos of all places. This is JP Morgan's CEO. Of course, you probably already know who he is, Jamie Dimon, saying really what needed to be said, especially on an NBC network.
How do you see the U.S. economy playing itself out over the next 12 months? This is an election year. We've been talking a lot about what just took place in Iowa and trying to understand how the American public is going to feel about the economy may ultimately dictate how the president is decided.
Yes, I agree with that. I think it's a mistake to assume that everything's hunky-dory. And, you know, and when stock markets are up, it's kind of like this little drug we all feel. Like, it's just great, you know. But remember, we've had so much fiscal and monetary stimulation. So I'm a little more on the cautious side, that we are facing a lot of things in 24 or 25. And we mentioned Ukraine, the terrorist activity in Israel, the Red Sea, quantitative tightening, which I still question if we understand exactly how that works. I don't think we do. How QE actually worked, what the effect of negative, zero rates was for all this time, and obviously the politics, and and then the Ukrainian war is affecting oil, gas, food, migration. So you have all these very powerful forces that are going to be affecting us in 24 and 25. So if I was the government, I would be preparing for what I'm going to do about that, assuming things aren't good. And I just also want to point out, I wish the Democrats would think a little more carefully when they talk about MAGA, and if you travel this country, and the country's unbelievable. We took our bus trip this year, and Leslie Picker was on Spokane and Boise and Bozeman. People are growing. They're hungry to grow. They're innovating. It's everywhere. It's not just Silicon Valley. So we've got this great hand. But when people say MAGA, they're actually looking at people voting for Trump, and they think they're voting, and they're basically scapegoating them, that you are like him. But I don't think they're voting for Trump because of his family values. Now, if you look, just take a step back, be honest. He was kind of right about NATO, kind of right about immigration. Mm-hmm. He grew the economy quite well.
China virus.
Tax reform worked. Mm-hmm. He was right about some of China. I don't like what he did.
No, I said China virus.
Yeah, I understand. He may have been right. And I don't like how he said things about Mexico. I don't like, but he wasn't wrong about some of these critical issues. And that's why they're voting for him. And I think people should be a little more respectful of our fellow citizens. And when you guys have people up here, you should always ask the why. Not like it's a binary thing. You're supporting Trump, you're not supporting Trump. Why are you supporting
It's hard to
Trump?
hate 75 million of your fellow Americans. And
I agree.
It's done crazy.
And, the Democrats have done a pretty good job with the deplorables, hugging onto their Bibles and their beer and their guns. I mean, really? Like, could we just stop that stuff and actually grow up and treat other people with respect and listen to them a little bit? And I do think the economy will affect. And I think this negative talk about MAGA is going to hurt Biden's election campaign.
Andrew Sorkin probably almost had a heart attack as those words were leaving his mouth. But man, I'm just sitting here after listening to that, and I'm just telling myself it's about time. I've been yelling that for how long? It's about time we're seeing that on the mainstream media. And it's especially about time that we see actually influential people speaking the truth on these kinds of networks. Not only did he praise Donald Trump for having incredible accomplishments during his actual time in office, but he specifically called out the Democrats by name as being childish, immature, but most importantly, pushing nonsense, slanderous talking points. Bible-thumping, bigoted, horrible Trump supporter voters, right? The same thing we always talk about. I've been saying it forever. I've been saying it for years. Leftoids are out of line when they talk about Trump supporters. They're out of pocket. The stuff that they say is ridiculous. They call you deplorable, extremist, domestic terrorists, threat to democracies, enabling a fascist leader, cult members. The latest term that I see flying around all over leftist circles is Christo-fascist. You turn on MSNBC and, of course, this is what you see every time.
And the big picture takeaway from that, and I don't mean to be, again, too dark, as you said, on this, but it is not. If we are worried about the rise of authoritarianism in this country, we are worried about potential rise of fascism in this country. If we're worried about our democracy falling to an authoritarian and potentially fascist form of government.
Scary. Shiver my timbers. Shut up, man.
The leader who is trying to do that is part of that equation. Mm-hmm. But people wanting that is a much bigger part of that equation. Right. And the American electorate is made up of two major parties. One of those parties has been flirting with extremism on the ultra-right for a very long time. They've brought them in a way that they haven't been central to Republican electoral politics ever before, and I know because I've been studying this.
I'll speak from a very educated mind.
But once you have radicalized one major party so that those are the preferences of the people who adhere to your party, the leader is interchangeable. And yes, Trumpism is sometimes what we call it. MAGA movement is probably a better way to do it. But there is an authoritarian movement inside Republican politics that isn't being bamboozled by Trump. They are pushing Trump to get more and more extreme, because the more extreme things he says, the more they adhere to him. And that is coming from a very large proportion of the American right that adheres to the Republican Party. And that's why this is a Republican Party problem more than it is the problem of one man and his leader.
Doesn't that tie together the...
Don't do drugs. If you're doing it, stop it. Get some help.
Fascism this, fascism that. You know, they all post the same out of context pictures of angry looking Trump supporters. But Trump supporters are regular people. Trump supporters are the people working with their hands building the nation. Trump supporters are the people working in the medical field, keeping people alive. The people busting their behinds, going to work every day to take care of and feed their families. The people who are involved in their communities, going to church on Sunday, sacrificing in their own lives in some cases to provide value to their communities. Good, hardworking people. Some of them, of course, are religious, some not so much, some in the middle, from varying different faiths, good American citizens, and the left is on this non-stop campaign to demonize Trump supporters as public enemy number one. That's what Joe Biden does on an annual basis every January 6th now, isn't it? The absolute clown. Well, even JP Morgan's Jamie Dimon apparently now can see it, along with millions of others. You know, that is really what is on my mind these days. I know I sound like a broken record, but I feel like the most important thing, or probably the trend of this election, is going to be the furtherance of this sort of wake-up call moment from 2016 to now. What the media is saying, but most importantly what Democrats are saying, this sort of dark, vitriolic, hate-fueled political messaging campaign, attempting to get people motivated to head to the polls to vote for them, not because of their policies, but because of the supposed fear, the threat of their political opponent. It doesn't exist. Even Don Lemon essentially alluded to that fact.
I would rather Donald Trump not to be the president of the United States again, but it's a devil you know in many ways. And I think that a Nikki Haley may be much more dangerous than a Donald Trump, because at least you know where Donald Trump stands on issues, and we have lived through a Donald Trump presidency.
Making the point that, well, you know, it's kind of hard to sell this image of a scary Donald Trump second term when we've already seen Donald Trump in action. We know what a Trump presidency is about. We've seen it before. We've lived through it. 4 years is a short period of time, but it's not an insignificant amount of time. It's enough time to get an idea of what it's all about, right? Trump's campaign messaging is actually quite simple. Stay away from foreign conflict, peel back government, and especially government regulation and burdensome taxes, secure the southern border, unleash American greatness. What does that have to do with fascism or the end of democracy as we know it? It's childish, it's hate-fueled, and it's wrong. And a lot of people can see it, and more every day, people see it. And we, of course, see it in the statistics. You know, it's the fascinating phenomenon of Donald Trump. When he initially took office, his approval rating was in the gutter. He's the only president that I've ever seen, I've made this point a million times, who gets more favorable and higher approval rating the more time goes on. Initially, people fell for all the nonsense, you know, they fell for the childish games, for the slanderous attacks, but you can only cry wolf so many times until people start catching on. You know, Trump supporters aren't this insurrectionist, Christo-fascist militia propping up a wannabe dictator who wants to do away with elections as we know it. People are starting to see right through it, and it seems as though even Democrats are starting to catch themselves. I guess maybe starting to realize that their strategy is a shit one.
We have people who don't want to believe the truth for whatever attitudes they have otherwise. But again, during this period, this campaign year, it behooves us to speak with respect for all concerned in a unifying way to bring people together.
Nancy Pelosi now says it's a campaign year, so it behooves us to speak with respect for all. This comes after Joe Biden just gave a speech essentially saying that regular folk, tax-paying, God-fearing, good people are a threat to democracy. It's too late to backtrack now. The Democrat Party is the party of political messaging campaigns such as Ultra MAGA and Deplorables. It seems as though even they're realizing it, and it might finally be catching up to them. I guess we'll just have to see how 2024 goes. Anyways, that's what I got for you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to leave a like and possibly subscribe. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.